Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We had some exciting news for Crash Bandicoot today with Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, finally being revealed. I wanted to do a video to talk about it. I know my Crash Bandicoot update videos don't do particularly well on the channel, and they don't help me bring any new subscribers in, and they don't generally get a lot of views, but I do love Crash, and I want to continue to talk about him. So let's dive in and have a look at what this announcement means for everything. So as I said at the top, and hopefully there'll be a trailer playing up here now or down here depending on how I adjust things. Maybe I'll sit like this and we'll have the trailer playing over here. The new announcement trailer for Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, has just gone live. It's pretty awesome, to be honest. After all these years having a brand new Crash game come out, you know, this is a game that the developers are obviously putting a ton of care into, a ton of love into. They want this to be the next thing in that Crash Bandicoot series. And yeah, it's I just don't know if I ever thought this day would come. We haven't had a new Crash game since Crash of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant, which were quite a number of years ago. Then obviously we had the two remakes, the Insane Trilogy and CTR, the past 3 years, which is exciting stuff as well. Getting those was, you know, something I never expected would ever happen. And then finally having something like this, it's pretty incredible, if I'm being honest. So let's break it all down. Basically, the developer for this game is Toys for Bob. They're the developers who worked on the Skylanders series of games, and they also worked on the Spyro Reignited trilogy. So they have experience remastering stuff. They did do some work on the Insane Trilogy and CTR as well, so they're not complete amateurs with Crash. They do know Crash. They announced today the game's coming out on the 2nd of October, so it's only 3 months away, really. It's not a huge amount of time to wait for that game, which is also really exciting. I can manage 3 months waiting for this Crash game. The art style has changed as we expected it to, given the pack shot and those new merchandise items that have come out recently. So Crash and Coco have been redesigned, so is Cortex. They've gone to a more cartoony art style, I would say, a more straight-edged art style, which is different for sure. It's not bad. It's just a different art style, especially compared to the Insane Trilogy. I don't know. I'm in two minds. I'm kind of disappointed they didn't continue the same art style from the Insane Trilogy. I did really like that. However, I can kind of see what they're going for here. This does feel a little bit more, the lines are a little bit more straight-edged in terms of how they're drawn. They're not as rounded. The models aren't like 3D models. They feel more like 3D cartoon models, which I do think is probably what Naughty Dog was going for in the original trilogy on PS1. So I kind of see where they're coming from with this. The other thing is, I have a bit of a theory on why they might have changed the art style so drastically. Maybe it's for merchandising reasons. Maybe they're planning on doing a television series. This does feel very Saturday morning cartoon to me in terms of art style. So I'm wondering whether or not that's because they are looking at options where they can merchandise this out further into potentially a toy line or a cartoon. Generally, when you see like a piece of media that looks like it could be a cartoon, probably because they're pitching it as a cartoon. Toys for Bob also have experience on producing or having a hand in producing the cartoon of Skylanders, which was a Netflix series. It got 3 seasons with Spyro and some really decent voice talent behind it. So I'm wondering whether or not that could be part of their thinking in this as well, as they produce this in this art style. This is how the game comes out, but alongside the game, they pitch a cartoon series for Crash Bandicoot. I don't know if it's the right property for a cartoon series, but based on the art style, I do think that it would work. I just don't know if it would be that interesting. I don't know if there's like enough lore there for a series of stuff. This is all conjecture. This is all pure speculation on my part, thinking maybe that could be part of their thinking and why they're doing this. But it honestly wouldn't shock me if that's what they are. That's my theory behind it. They showed a ton of gameplay today as well as the trailer that's playing up here. Basically showed platforming, corridor platforming, and 2D side-scrolling type platforming. So very similar to what we've seen in Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3. And the Insane Trilogy. They're the same games. But it's the same platforming that we saw in those games. They do look like they've adjusted the platforming, though, to be more modernized, and they've tried to done some things that, I guess, throw a new spin on what corridor platforming is, and you can see that in how the masks seem to augment Crash and Coco's abilities. So there's 4 new masks in this game. I don't know if they've explicitly said what they all are and what they all do yet, but it seems like as they get them, they put on kind of a suit of armor or something, and it allows them to either like climb walls or go upside down. The Toys for Bob showed a ton of footage today of a level where you're basically doing corridor platforming, but you're going on the walls, you're going on the roof, and you seem to be able to just change as you want to with the click of a button. You're switching gravity, and that is pretty cool. Like, it does overcomplicate things a little bit, but it is a natural progression in terms of that formula that Crash developed, and this is a new take on that and something new. It's not just giving you the same thing you had before, and I think that's what's really important, is it's not just trying to ape 20 years ago. It's not just trying to replicate that. This is trying to create its own new spin and twist on that genre in 2020 and make it interesting in 2020, because honestly, platformers aren't really popular in 2020, so they did need to do something to that, and I think from what I can see, they've done that. Actually, going back to the art style quickly, like my last point on that, I will say the art style is very colorful, and that's nice. Like, having a game that's as vibrant and colorful as Crash, the art style lends really well towards that. The masks are all like very vibrant colors. You've got this turquoise one, you've got this gold one. Crash is really orange, obviously, that dirty rat boy always is, but having him like that color and then the different colors and the environments around him, they really did pop out in that trailer. And it was impressive. I thought that was really nice and refreshing, especially when you compare it to a lot of the grayish colors in most serious video games. I mean, video games are getting more colorful. I suppose it's probably because I've just been playing The Last of Us, which is a lot of greens and kind of dark colors, whereas this is a lot more vibrant. So that's kind of exciting as well. So that's another point on that. The other thing I want to talk about is in a developer interview today. So Jeff Keighley interviewed them on his stream. I guess it was like in the morning US time. It was in the middle of the night Australian time. Part of the interview is the developer mentioned they're revealing gameplay for Crash, Coco, and Cortex. So you can play as all three of those characters confirmed in the game. Crash and Coco play very similarly to how they played in the Insane trilogy. And Cortex has a completely different move set to those two characters, so he offers a different type of gameplay. But one of the lines the developer mentioned in that same interview is that those are the only three they're announcing today, which would indicate that they do have other characters who are potentially playable in the game as well, which they're not prepared to announce today. So I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes kind of speculating on what that might be and what that means for the series. So I'm wondering whether or not maybe there's a new character introduced into the game. That's probably my first theory, is that there's a new Bandicoot or a new Cortex type character who they're introducing who is going to be playable in the game. The reason I think that is because if you go back to anything else in the Crash 1, 2, and 3 lore, there's not really another hero character that would make sense to be introduced as a playable character, unless it's a new character. And then in terms of villains, there's tons of villains it could be. But it would be unusual for them to add, another villain as a playable character. Cortex is already kind of there, and he probably kind of does a good enough job of that. I don't know, maybe it's in Tropy, maybe it's in Jin, but I feel like either of those characters would still be kind of weird. So I don't know about those two. If we look beyond Crash 1, 2, and 3, the other person would be potentially Crunch. Now, he's a character that was introduced in Crash 4, The Wrath of Cortex, which was the canonical Crash 4 up until, I guess, today when they nerfed it. However, they've said that it's all still canon. It's just a different timeline, essentially. So this happens after Warped, but the events of the other Crash games still occur in a different timeline, and they'll potentially explore that because this is a time travel, multi-dimensional type game. So maybe Crunch becomes playable in a different timeline. Maybe a different version of Crash becomes playable, the one from the Insane trilogy, or a different design of Crash from a different video game. Maybe he becomes playable in the game as well, and his art style doesn't match the rest of the game, but that kind of would make sense. Maybe it's the old Poly Crash from PS1, maybe it's the Insane Trilogy Crash, maybe it's the one from Mind of a Mutant. We don't know, but that probably wouldn't surprise me if they did that, or they put Crunch into the game as a playable character. And my final theory on playable characters, and this is probably the most wild of the theories, is that Spyro is featured in the game as a playable character as well. I don't know how that would work, because Spyro's moveset is so different to Crash's. And I think they would need a lot of tweaking to make Spyro work in the game as a playable character instead of Crash, Coco, or Cortex. But maybe it's possible. These guys have hinted that Spyro is going to be in the game. They hinted it on an interview with another YouTuber called Canadian Guy A, who had an exclusive interview with the developers, and he asked about Spyro and the possibility of Spyro being in the game, and they didn't say yes, but they kind of gave him the old wink and a nod type answer. So from that, Spyro, I can infer, is featured in the game, and he's going to be there in some capacity. Maybe Crash passes through his dimension at some point. Maybe he's a sidekick or an ally, or maybe he's actually playable in the game as well, which, I don't know, would be kind of cool. I like these fan service things. In execution, they don't always work that well, but the fan service behind it is really, really cool, and it can help me keep dreaming, I suppose. So, those are my thoughts on the game. Probably not as like jumping off the walls excited as you normally see me, but I've had a couple of hours to digest this one, so that's kind of why. I am excited though. I am really, really excited. I was surprised not to see a collector's edition announced. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater got a collector's edition, so I was expecting a collector's edition for this, and I thought, man, a collector's edition for Crash would be so cool, because we've never had one. So I was really pumped for that, but I haven't seen anything yet. Something could still pop up though in the next couple of days or weeks in the lead up to launch. If it does, and you guys hear about it before me, let me know in the comment section, because I definitely want it. If not, yeah, so that's one part of it. The art style was probably the biggest shock for me. The change in art style is going to take some getting used to. I don't hate it though. I'm on board with it, and I'm excited with the direction they're taking the game. I think it has a lot of potential. I've got a lot of respect for Toys for Bob as well. They cultivated a very successful franchise in Skylanders, and personally, I was a big fan of Skylanders. I enjoyed it. I played the original for Spyro, and then I stuck around with it for the Skylanders. So I very much enjoyed that franchise. There were some ups and downs, obviously, but I think Toys for Bob are very competent. So that excites me too. And yeah, it's cool just to see some new take on Crash and getting something new. I mean, new content isn't ever bad. If it turns out to be not something that we like, then it's not something that we like. But it's you know, it's hard to be like skeptical. Well, no, it's not hard to be skeptical. It's hard to be negative about something so early on when you just don't know anything about it. And with all the things the developers are saying, it seems like they really care about the franchise. It seems like they really want to make this something special as well. So, you know, I think that there's a lot of love there, but I'm super excited about it. Hopefully you guys are too. Let me know if you are excited for this game as well in the comment section down below. If you're excited and you're as excited as I am, then I'll continue to cover this game as well on the channel. I'm definitely going to be covering it when it launches, but every leak and news story and things that come out, I can definitely look at keeping everyone updated if people are interested and people are excited. Otherwise, I'll just keep it to myself. It's it's up to you guys. But if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. And let me know in the comment section down below. If you're new to the channel, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below as well. It helps the channel out enormously. But yeah, that's all from me, guys. We're back. Crash is back. All right, I'll see you in the next one.